Magic is what happens when peace is near.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Season 8 of Enlightened Conversations. This season we're diving into all things 7D consciousness, what it is, what it isn't, and how it shows up in our everyday life. I'll also be sharing concepts from my new book, Pieces of Science, towards a unified peace theory, as we explore the fascinating overlaps between spirituality, human behaviour, consciousness, and how we can integrate more peace into our lives. So, without further ado, let's dive in.
You're here, together we are clear.
Hi everyone, it's Michelle Lightworker here, and we have a wonderful episode today on everything rainbow, LGBTQIA+ topic and 7D consciousness. And this one relates really close to my heart because I identify as bisexual and pansexual, so I'm very much in that realm of the rainbow, hence wearing my rainbow and my glitter pants. I have disco pants on, so yeah, I won't show you the full cohort, but I just thought wear those, get myself in the mood. So we're talking all things, how our sexuality and how our gender and how 7D consciousness intersect today. And we have our wonderful guests, Willow Roberts, Leanne Barefoot Medium, Chris Charles, Sathiavanni, and Karen Andrews Roberts. They're back with another round with us, to go another round with us. And our first question to kick it off will be Willow Roberts. Now, this question is, how does 7D consciousness relate to gender and sexuality? Take it away, Linda. How does 7D consciousness relate to gender and sexual identity?
We accept everybody for who they are, and there's no judgments. My daughter is gay, so when she told me, I went, okay, yep. We love everybody. When you're coming from the 7th D, the 7th plane, you're full of unconditional love. Relationships are transactional though. We know that we've got to have the reciprocity and we've got to compromise and work, but when you come from that unconditional loving place, you don't care of their sexual way or who they are. You just love them because they are. They're loved just because they exist.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. They're loved because they exist. Love doesn't discriminate. It's something that flows through us. It's a frequency that flows through our energy centers and our heart space. And when it's genuine, we connect with people on that frequency. And our mind can get in the way. It can create drama. It can create barriers to love. But the thing that we may not realize in terms of peace is when we're not actually extending and connecting that frequency of love on that 5D level, which also then impacts the field on that 7D level that we talk about. We are depriving ourselves of the energy of that love to flow through. So it becomes a deprivation rather than an extension of more, or an amplifier of more love and peace. Next up, we've got Leanne Barefoot Medium.
In terms of gender, gender is a biological, physical thing. That is, we have two genders and we have different, that's my belief system, different ways of being in that gender, if I can say it that way. We also all have masculine and feminine energy within us, and we can embrace more or less of one or the other. And so we may be in a human gender body as a male and have more of that feminine energy that vibrates and comes through and that aligns for us in this lifetime. And that's just about expression and the way you individually want to choose or feel right about aligning with and being in the world that feels in integrity and authentic and true for you. Go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. It really is about that ownership of how we feel comfortable and how we want to express ourselves and how we want to own our expression of ourselves in this lifetime. And whether that energy comes from a more masculine or a more feminine energetic space, that's really our growing and our evolving, really, in the way we approach it in a peaceful way. And to see the time as not linear, to see it as an evolution of time that allows us to explore our wholeness is also very helpful. And it stops us from feeling like, oh, well, I have been born as a woman, so I should act a certain way, or I have been born as a man, so I should act a certain way. So it really liberates us and it frees us from those stereotypes. Next up, we have Chris.
I think it simply expands our understanding of human experience, because when people develop a greater consciousness, they actually start recognizing that identity is deeply personal, and it's shaped by so many internal and social factors. And I think we're now in a world where it's so much more accepted, and which is great. Go back 50 years and horrific. So that in itself is great. However, it's shaped by many different things. And in NLP, we often talk about identity as one of the highest levels of how people organize meaning in their lives. So when someone understands their identity clearly, they tend to live with more authenticity and alignment, higher awareness. They encourage curiosity rather than judgment. So instead of trying to force everyone into the same categories or force them into hiding, because you can't force someone into a category, it's much better to ask the question, how does this person experience the world? That shift alone can really create more respectful and compassionate conversations than any other thing.
That's great, Chris. I love that. How does this person experience the world? And that changes too over time, over the lifespan. I mean, we all think about who I am at this very moment is going to be who I am in 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. I think that what is really important is accepting ourselves. That's what's really important. Like accepting not knowing exactly what the exact identity is that I'll be forevermore or for all time, and just going, I acknowledge and accept my identity in this moment as being this gender, as being this frequency, as being this sexuality, and I accept and I love myself exactly as I am right at this very moment. And when we can do that, we can then extend that to other people. It becomes another extension of simply our own acceptance and love and compassion and connection for humanity. And next up, we have Sathiavanni.
From what I've shown and what I've seen and what I've experienced on the higher realm, there is 70. There's no discrimination in any way, shape, or form. It is just seen as a soul, as a human. That's it. Simple. There's no being in the higher frequency of 7D doesn't have an impact on your sexual identity or your preferences, or to say, oh, because I'm operating on 7D, I'm going to gravitate towards, being bisexual only. That's what it's triggered me. It's nothing like that at all. It is the soul still experiencing that physical human body that it's in, and it's at that pure level as well of just pure love. There is no discrimination at all. It doesn't affect it in a way. All it is that soul is living in its purest truth. Simple as that.
Thanks, Sathiavanni. I agree, and I feel like it is about living our truth. And I think that I identify as a bisexual person. I don't think I came into this world thinking I was a bisexual person from day dot, but I think that over time that has been something that has been integrated into my experience, and I feel very comfortable in that evolution. It doesn't mean that if I was reincarnated into a new body that I would feel the same, that I would begin as a bisexual person or end up as a bisexual person after all my lifetimes. I agree 100%. I think that it's also an exploration. I think it's also a acknowledgement of where you currently are, what you're currently learning. And I also agree for all the sexes that too, that being hardcore, or I'm always this or I'm always that, is as closed-minded as you're not this and you're not that, like to ourselves. So yeah, I think it is about living our truth, and that truth does expand and change over time. Next up, we've got Karen Andrews Roberts talking about gender and sexuality and 7D.
Well, 7D consciousness, again, it lifts us out of judgment to people that we may perceive as different. This ancient belief that we have to be a man and a woman, and it elevates us out of these ancient, archaic ways of being. We're human beings. People are born the way that they're born. And so I think that a lot of what's happening again is these beings coming in, expressing themselves differently in our world to help us lift our vibration, to help us step out of judgment.
Thanks, Karen. I love that you referred to me as a being that would help people step out of judgment. I think that's awesome. I think it's a really great reframe for anybody who identifies in a way that they may feel judged by people usually. What a wonderful, wonderful thing to feel. Oh yes, I'm just a catalyst for people to step into more of an open-mindedness and to break through their judgment. I love that. Thank you so much. And our next question is, how can higher awareness support authentic self-expression? First up, we have Linda.
Yeah, it's creative, you know. When you step into what you love doing, you really are aligning and you're getting back in the spiritual flow, and then you're connecting to the creator. So it's not do one thing and you're there. It's you being open to your gifts and your knowledge and your wisdom, and then combining that with the seventh plane, you just become more authentic and more in alignment with it, and it becomes a clearer channel, and you're building on that because you are being who you truly are.
Oh my God, Linda, yes. My husband and I just got back from Tassie, and we had such a great time, and we're just having a really good time and doing all the things we love. And I was getting more downloads for my music and just going with that. And what I found is the more I do what I feel I align with, that's fun and joyful and really an authentic expression, and the more energy I have and the more I feel at peace, it sort of feeds itself. Like peace does build on peace, because the more you're at peace with yourself, the less you're caught up in the angst of what people think of us, you know. And then the more we actually step into what we love to do, and then the more we do what we love to do, the more we do, and it's just so fun. So life becomes lighter, I think, from being at peace with our authentic self, no matter where we're at. And if we gotta let the tears out, let the tears out. Gotta let the screams out, let the scream out in the pillow. Get to that place of then doing something loving and nurturing and yummy for the soul that you love doing, that makes you feel like you're you. And then it just gets better and better and better and better. Next up, we have Leanne Barefoot Medium.
Higher awareness can help us really look at, and the thing that's coming through is skills and abilities. And so authenticity is about being able to express our skills and our abilities and the who we are from the truth of who we are, that highest vibrational space of who we are. And that might mean bringing through skills and abilities from different lifetimes to help us step into new chapters and new ways of being in this lifetime, because as humans, we go through iterations and we integrate all different versions of ourselves in different parts of our life. So consciousness can help us bring through the skills, the knowledge, the wisdom, the tools, the abilities that we need for each version of ourselves.
Love that. I think I'm up to version, I don't know, 1.2 or something. I mean, geez, I look back in my life and I've had so many versions of myself, but they're all exciting and they're all interesting in their own way. And I'm sure there's so many more versions of me. I think when we look at 7D consciousness and we're connected to not only, our past and our future and all the bits in between that, and our present as well, in terms of where we feel guided at the moment to express ourselves. And we also have our tapping into the field and all the abilities at our fingertips, really, if we want to plug into the field and really explore who we are. We can do that. And I think that gives us a sense of liberty, freedom, and joy and happiness to be able to explore, and really sort of supports that little toddler in us that likes to explore and have adventures and try new things and play dress ups, do what we want. And I think that is really authenticity in action as well. It doesn't have to be stagnant. Next up, we have Chris.
I think when people feel psychologically safe, they express themselves more honestly. So one of the challenges that many individuals face is that they've spent years trying to fit into expectations that were never truly theirs. So higher awareness encourages people to examine the beliefs that they have absorbed from family, culture, and society. And again, in NLP, we actually call these internal rules or identity beliefs. So once someone becomes aware of those patterns, they can decide which ones are actually theirs and which ones were simply inherited. Because authentic self-expression often emerges when people realize that they're allowed to define themselves rather than constantly trying to meet someone else's expectations.
I think that's true, Chris. And I think that the more we have an awareness of like our higher self, looking at the parts of us that might be scared and not feel safe, and having a dialogue between, say, a higher awareness part that we can anchor in, and also those vulnerable parts of ourselves that don't feel safe, and we can start to help them feel safe, we do then step more into a better awareness of what is it that we truly want, without sort of feeling like there's a kind of barrier in front of us, like blocking our view. Really frees us up. Next up, we've got Sathiavanni.
It is very much with the self-expression, but also from the space of diplomacy, if that's the best word I could use. It is very much that embracing of that uniqueness and that unique talent, purpose, that we are on that level of that self-expression. But even in that self-expression, there is that level of, there is just that level of humbleness and that humility as well, if I could use that word. It's very free-flowing, very free-flowing energy, okay, in terms of self-expression. Sometimes there is no need to verbalize, there's no need to express, but just be present.
So diplomacy, humility, and the free-flowing nature of authenticity. I appreciate that, because sometimes we feel like we need to look at me, this is my truth. But often it's just this is my truth, and I'm good. I'm good with it, and I don't need to prove it to anyone. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. And so there's a day for not wearing the rainbow things, and I have like daggy doona days and stuff like that. Doesn't change my sexuality or my gender or my self-expression. Sometimes a daggy doona day is what I feel like, and that's my authentic self-expression, and I don't need to prove that to anybody. It's a bit like that. And Next up, we have Karen.
Well, I guess higher awareness lifts us out of the lower vibrations of our humanness. And when we do that, we lose the density of self-judgment and stuckness and stagnancy. So I think higher consciousness really allows for genuine self-expression. 7D consciousness is genuine self-expression, pure consciousness, who we're here to be.
Yeah, pure consciousness, who we're here to be. I love that. And it's not a stagnant thing. Our pure consciousness is always roaming in life, in what we're doing, in our day, in our season, in our newest chapter. And so I feel about allowing all of that with grace, with acceptance, and with joy, and with peace. Because if we're at peace with our current chapter, even if it's a little bit rocky and we go, well, this is a learning space or what have you, then we can at least align ourselves with peace to support us rather than to beat ourselves up. I shouldn't be in this zone. This shouldn't be happening to me, those kind of things. So our next question is, how does this understanding impact relationships and community support? First up, we have Linda.
Well, I know in my situation, in my family, it's they're more comfortable. They're more at ease with who they are. They're more honest. They're more true. They feel worthy. They feel like that they're able to be loved. So I think once that you have that acceptance out there, like Holly and I often talk, my mum and dad have passed away. Mum died in 2005 and dad in 2010. And we often sort of say, when did Nana and Papa think about that? You know, I think that it's a different consciousness. We've worked on ourselves, and when you work on yourself enough, you don't have the hang-ups of the old conditioning and the old ways of thinking. Like it doesn't look like that anymore. And so the community is being supported. And that's what it comes back to, that political conversation we were having, that allowing women and girls to learn and be who they are, as well as the boys and the men. It's allowing people to be who they are without putting any restrictions on them. And they really come back to that self-awareness of, I am loved and I deserve to be loved. And so they expect that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think of it any differently, because it is like, it's my world. So I don't ever think of anybody differently.
It's the irony, Linda, not feeling different to people like yourself and just feeling accepted by people like yourself as just being normal and just included makes all the difference. It just really does. And it really bridges those guards and gaps and judgments and makes it such a healing and beautiful, peaceful, relaxation energy to be in. So thank you. And now we have Leanne.
Ooh, if you can integrate with your true self, your higher self, and really stay in that integrity with who you are and know who you are to your core. And I kind of feel like I want to stick a stave and a stake in the ground and go, nope, this is who I am and who I'm here to be in this world, this lifetime. Then no one or nothing external of you can wobble you out of that. And there will be tests, and particularly for that particular community, who often struggle or find challenges with connecting with identity in particular, and who they are and who they're expressing themselves as being in this world. Others will wobble them to fit in with those social norms and social structures, or who they perceive them to need to be in the world, or their expectation of who they're meant to be. I would say come back to who you are at your core, and don't meet others' expectations of who you need to be. Be you.
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? Not to be wobbled by non-support, I think is also a really big one. Sometimes that support comes as judgment, like it's an interactive kind of obvious judgment, and then other times it's just you're just not seen, like you're invisible and you don't exist. And yeah, it's kind of like the opposite of what we're talking about with Linda, like complete acceptance and inclusion, but not acknowledgement that you're different. But then there's this shadow side of that, which is, I don't see who you are. It's not real. It doesn't exist. And you kind of feel invisible. So it's an interesting thing, this whole topic of feeling the community support, isn't it? Next up, we've got Chris.
I think when awareness increases, relationships often become more respectful and less reactive. It's not sort of as, oh, different, you know, there's so many more people being open about their sexuality and their neurodiversity and their differences and their quirks and their foibles. You know, people begin to listen with curiosity rather than assume they already understand someone else's experience. And communities become healthier when individuals feel seen and valued rather than judged. And one of the, probably one of the interesting things about conscious communication is that it actually reduces defensiveness on all sides. So when people feel safe, conversations become more thoughtful and definitely more productive. So in other words, awareness doesn't remove differences between people, but it allows those differences to exist without turning into conflict or judgment.
One of my most favourite things that I learned in Peace as a Science as I was writing it, and in this unified peace theory, is that peace can hold complexity. It's not fragile and it doesn't break. It can hold complexity. And that's one of the biggest learnings I've had with peace and understanding it. So it does come into play here with what Chris is saying. And when we are able to do that with our community and each other and hold that complexity and not fragment and keep the connection and be inclusive and remain at peace, it's such a gift to ourselves and to others and the community itself at large. We're spreading it in a real tangible way. And next up, we've got Sathiavanni.
Oh, compassion, just love. Love, as as we know, it is the powerful and purest form of light, because that's what everyone desires and everyone deserves and everybody wants. So the vibration of love is what is the key to 7D and higher, because that is what it's operating on. So it is going to have a more powerful effect in bringing in that empathy, that compassion, that stance of how can I help you? How can I support you? What do I have to do? It instigates growth. Okay? Growth for knowledge.
I love how Sathiavanni, you've touched on the holding of love and love giving us that opportunity to operate on 7D, because when I was exploring the archetypes of holding, I came upon Mary, Mother Mary, and her abilities to hold Jesus in gestation. And he's this kind of conduit of love that is like an amplifier of peace, and also is something that is held by peace as well, by his mother. And this kind of these archetypes came into play as I was researching Peace as a Science, and I realized how integral they were to understanding the relationship between peace and love and how that interacts. So thank you for bringing that to our attention in this manner, because it's so relevant. And next up we have Karen.
Well, higher consciousness is a way of expressing ourselves that is free of ego. So when to have access to that and to consciously access higher awareness, we're expressing ourselves differently. We are freer to be who we really are. And then we also communicate those needs to others from that place, from that heart-centered, higher consciousness place.
I think Karen touches on something really important here, that if we want support and we need support, then we need to be able to articulate our needs for that support. And if we can't get that support from the people that we want that from, then our awareness, our higher awareness doesn't turn that inward as something about us. It doesn't make it about us being wrong or bad. It just means we need to look elsewhere for that support. I think that's really important. Okay, so we're moving on now to what practices foster integration and alignment for LGBTQIA plus individuals. And first up, we have Linda.
They just do themselves. Holly does TikTok, and her girlfriend Steph, or fiance, sorry, Steph gets on there, and they're just themselves. So they're never anywhere that anybody has any opinion against them, not because they stay away from people, but they've just not had that. Although, older people seem to be in that cycle of not acceptance. But yeah, they don't find that. Nobody looks at them any different, and they're on social media and they do things, and they're not looked at it any different.
I love that, Linda, that your family is just so accepted. They're off doing their thing and it's just there every day, and they feel free to be who they are in whatever environment they're in. It's amazing. Now, let's hear from Leanne.
I think it's about exploring that word identity, and the word belongingness comes in. There's often a sense of not belonging to particular groups or to the family structure or communities in general. So I would explore what belongingness means to you, and as an energetic vibrational frequency, and look at where you do belong and how you do belong to yourself first and foremost, and then bring that energy to the space you're in, and focus on those spaces you are accepted, you are welcomed in, you are embraced, and you feel like you belong.
Thanks, Leanne. And sometimes that doesn't even have anything to do with your sexuality or your gender orientation. I mean, I remember going along to lesbian events as I was coming out, just to identify as my bisexual self, and also feeling judged a little bit from that crowd as not being kind of aligned with them. So it can come from, you can get judged anywhere. Not everybody judged me, by the way, but yeah. And so I had to be really selective when I was kind of choosing who I wanted to be around. And I think authenticity and what makes you feel connected, those two things are really important, because if you can't be yourself and you feel disconnected, even if the group you should feel connected in the group, it's not going to land. So using your higher awareness to really sense those things out is super important. And now on to Chris.
I think the same practices that support personal growth for anyone can be helpful here as well, because reflective journaling, coaching, supportive communities, and honest conversations all help people clarify their sense of identity. It's probably everyone's normal. If we just all went, everyone's just themselves, and it doesn't matter who you are or what you are or how you identify, you're just as welcome in this circle as everyone else, because we are all totally individual anyway. We all have our own model of the world. And to me, that's just another model of the world. It really isn't something to be judged. In NLP, we often encourage people to explore the beliefs they hold about themselves, and where those beliefs ordinarily could make someone feel uncomfortable in the old days. I think that's becoming less and less. Where did those beliefs originally come from? Sometimes those beliefs were shaped by criticism or misunderstanding or social pressure. And sometimes they were created by their own mind reads of assuming that people are going to judge them as well. So again, curiosity. When someone revisits those old beliefs consciously, they often discover they've actually got far more freedom than they realized. And alignment actually tends to happen when someone feels safe enough to live in any way they want. And that genuinely, reflects who they are.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. Alignment is different of making sure you've dealt with those things that you feel uncomfortable and that could bleed into this topic. And that includes the body too, because sometimes that gender dysmorphia happens. Sometimes it comes through as body dysmorphia if it's not, those issues aren't dealt with. It's complicated. We do speak about this a lot in the last section of Pieces of Science, because we want to explore alignment across sexuality, gender, and the body. We also include eating disorders in that as well, and body image, because the body and owning this body is all part of that. So it's a really interesting thing, just that wanting to feel normal, just getting to that does require some healing sometimes. And that does also not just depend on healing our traumas, but also learning about how we can become more at peace in our bodies. And now we're on to Sathiavanni.
One of the biggest practices, and this is something that I've been given as well, is to not view or see as being different. Okay, if you yourself see yourself as being different, you're already creating that negative effect. So seeing yourself as just a light and as a pure light and as a pure being in this physical form is what is going to help with the understanding and the assimilating, the adapting, all of that. To come to a space of just acceptance of love and just seeing each other as human beings and not as having preferences or anything like that. So if one does not see as different or putting those labels, because as soon as you put labels, you're restricting. Okay, so accountability is required there as well, because you're already distancing yourself from that energy. So what 7D is trying, when you're in that vibration, is seeing everything as equal. Okay.
Yeah, I think seeing everyone as equal is imperative to acknowledge people's sovereignty and their business as being just as important as yours, where they're at in their own life cycle, lifespan, evolution. And it helps to remove judgment, because you're not engaging in who they should be, who they could be, who were they, who are they now. All that stuff's none of our business, and that brings about more respect for their process and more equality as well. And now let's hear from Karen.
I guess any practices that support us in elevating our consciousness, anything that lifts us out of lower frequency emotions, behaviors, anything that supports us lifting the vibration, meditation, laughter, spending time with people who we love to be around, watching things that are beautiful to us, listening to things that feel peaceful and beautiful.
Yes, that's circling back to what we talked about at the beginning of our episode of, spending that time doing what brings us joy and what we love. And that does foster integration. It so easily does. So now let's move on to our fifth question. How can listeners actively create more inclusive and conscious spaces? Take it away, Linda.
Just by being themselves and being open. I don't see closed spaces either. It's hard to understand that. If you'd have asked me, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I probably would have, had some ideas, but I don't see any closed spaces for them. I don't see that the community doesn't accept them. I don't see them ever get looked at differently. Anywhere we go, they don't get looked at differently. Yeah.
Wow, Linda. What I'm getting from you is this message that when we feel at home in a certain vibration with ourselves and also with others, we have a little bit of a cocoon around it. And that's what we see. And it's recursive. It builds on itself. Like peace. Peace builds on peace. That's what we've actually researched and proven, that more peace builds on more peace. So it works the same way. It's incredibly powerful. And now let's hear from Leanne.
I would say just be really open, we're not all made the same for a reason. And those around you that are not made the same, and if you have very strong views about one way or another, then that's your challenge and your learning. You're being invited to move into acceptance and move into a different perspective and a different view, and that person's in your world to challenge you to change that and shift that and heal that, so that you can be more accepting, more compassionate, and more loving, which then ripples out through everything and everyone.
Thanks, Leanne. That's a really wonderful reframe again, that you're bringing forward and repeating what we have discovered. It's an invitation for other people, not for the person who has their own expression that's unique to themselves, but it's the receiver of that information and that energy around them to go, how unsettled do I feel? What do I need to heal? How can I disrupt this judgmental pattern of my own and own it and grow from it and learn from it? And I'm happy to be a catalyst, baby. Yeah. All right. Catalyst with disco pants on and rainbows. Okay, let's hear from Chris.
I think the simplest and most powerful things people can do is practice curiosity. Instead of assuming everyone's experiences are the same again, ask questions and listen and be inclusive and fair and don't judge. We're all different. We're all different. We all have different everything. So none of us are clones. So I think if we could treat people with respect and kindness and understand that they are who they are, from a conscious perspective, inclusion is really about recognizing the dignity of every individual. And interestingly, when people feel respected, they tend to extend that same respect to others. So conscious spaces are not created through rules alone. They're created through the awareness and behavior of people within them. So I think there should be no conversation about it. It should just be you are who you are, and you're accepted and respected fully, no matter what.
I agree, Chris. And also when I was researching pieces of science and we had the mental health chapter, what came through a lot was a lot of mental health issues are created from people feeling a lack of dignity and this feeling of shame at their very core. And so then the masking appears, the hiding, and then the numbing with the addictions, and then the splitting of the identity, and then the guards, put up and then the light dims, and the depression because there's no hope for futures, and then the anxiety because there's a fear of already thinking about the futures. And so this loss of dignity is very important to ensure that we restore that when we consciously meet someone, we honor them and we respect them. That restores dignity in our interaction. And peace interactions like that, those connections that are clean, they build dignity. They are dignity building in action. So when we bring that sense of peace to our interaction with others, what we give them is the gift of dignity, and that is very powerful. And it's a wonderful mental health prevention. Now let's hear from Sathiavanni.
I think it's the same as repeating what I said before. It is very much not seeing everything as being different. We're not different. Same blood flows in every single human being, every single sentient being. The blood is red. Okay. So it is very much not seeing that difference is what is the key teaching or key point of higher 7D and beyond. That's all it is. Because where we've had segregation and where we've had differences and conflict is we've seen each other as being different. 7D is just trying to get us back to the pure truth. Simple.
Yes, sometimes it's just as simple as that, just knowing we're all equal, we've all got the same types of things that we're dealing with in life. There's no real difference. We're all just on the journey, and to be able to see that in such a holistic way from that 7D consciousness is such a gift to ourselves. It's so liberating. We take ourselves off the hook, and we take everybody else off the hook as well. Okay, let's hear from Karen.
I guess, again, by taking care of our own consciousness, our own way of being in this world, it really starts with that. When we connect with ourselves kindly and expansively and bring that presence to ourselves and are more mindful of what helps me to feel light and connected and happy in this world, what brings me peace. The more that we ask that about ourselves, the more that becomes our natural way of being here, and we extend it to others to create spaces that are filled with higher consciousness for others. But it starts with ourselves.
Yeah, it does. It starts with ourselves, and it could be unique for ourselves as well from somebody else, finding that sense of peace, that integration, feeling that sense of inclusion and conscious spaces. It's about exploring and taking the time to do that. Some things will feel like they don't fit, and it's a bit like putting on a shoe that doesn't fit, and then some places will feel like they do fit, and it's about just me do me, you do you, and figuring that out. Is just call it a science experiment or call it an adventure, call it whatever you want, because it's an opportunity to expand yourself, explore, and to own what feels good and aligned. And you'll be at peace more quickly when you give yourself that permission. All right, so last question. Any advice for navigating challenges around identity and acceptance? Let's hear from Linda.
Yeah, you need to talk to somebody. You need to get it out. Certainly go and see some professional help if you are struggling, or you have problems, or there are people around you that are not accepting you. Reach out and talk to somebody. Don't hold it in, regardless of what your situation is and what your letter is. I call it letters. Then I said to Holly about her pronouns. I said, so what are you? Because I don't care. She can be whatever she wants to be, but she's her, she, or something like that. But it's okay. It's okay, and it's okay. You need to reach out to people, and especially when kids are coming up now, they're more attuned. Their compassion, their empathy, all of that is more tuned in because of we've raised. And the evolution of our consciousness has continued to rise, and kids now are feeling more, and I think that they need to learn their power and to protect their energy and to have discernment around what somebody else is thinking and feeling, and knowing that they can detach from that and it's not their feelings. And I think in a spiritual way that we need to teach them is to have discernment, to go up to the seventh plane and say to the Creator, give me discernment about what is my feelings and what is other people's feelings. And I think that is a really big and important thing for them to know, because sometimes they can feel negatively about themselves and it may not be them that's feeling that, it could be somebody that's around them.
Yes, learning those boundaries where I end and someone else begins, even though we're all connected through the field, our emotional ownership of who we are and what we feel, it's good to be able to learn those skills to distinguish that We've actually got a lot of practical stuff in this last section of the book covering those kind of ideas as well. Now let's hear from Leanne.
If you're struggling with navigating that on your own, because it can be challenging and it can take you down into some really deep, dark emotions, and that shame or the anger or the embarrassment or those things that come up, I would say find support. Find people who you can reach out to, who can support you, encourage you, motivate you to look at who you're wanting to be in the world and who you're currently being, and how you can close that gap by taking really empowered actions and steps every day.
Yeah, Leanne, and who we are it builds every day. It builds from day to day. We don't need to know the finished product to be able to scope the gap. We can just go, well, here I am over here, and I know I just want to be at peace, or I just want to be a little bit more confident, or I just want to be a little bit more dressing the way I feel like I want to dress. And it's about taking those baby steps towards that. And sometimes we just need to have a supportive presence to be able to discuss how we can do that, little practical things we can do, little processes we could do to become more at peace with ourselves, to become those things. And now on to Chris.
I think identity journeys can take time. People are constantly learning about themselves and others, and it helps to approach these conversations with patience and a little bit of humility, because none of us have a perfect understanding. No one knows what someone else's journey has been. No one has walked in someone else's shoes as well. So in personal development work, we often encourage people to focus on clarity about who they are, rather than constantly trying to control how everyone else is responding, because you can't control that. So when someone develops really a strong internal sense of identity, and external opinions tend to carry less emotional weight, because once they've got a strong sense of identity, the physiology that they carry, they're not frightened, their chin's up, their shoulders are back, they're confident. People will take them and respect them as they are, because our vibrations, relate. So if you walk in, people are going to know, there's a problem. There's a problem, Houston. Whereas if you actually walk in with confidence, I am who I am, green eggs and ham and all.
I love the slogan, let it begin with me. And Chris has really responded to this question in that way. When we unplug from all the going on and the shenanigans of everybody else's opinions, it really does help to keep it really simple and to help bring that power back to ourselves in the moment and what we can change and what we can focus on and reach our goals. So that's a good one. I like that. Let's move on to Sathiavanni.
Work on connecting with your higher self. So if you're having if you know that you're on a journey and you're awakening, it is very much doing the inner work to connect with your higher self, so that your higher self, your physical body, your light body, your auric body operates as one. Okay, that is your job, so that there is no separation, so that you start to see, feel, be as the truth. And that's what's going to help.
Yeah, thanks, Sathiavanni. And when I was doing the last section of the book, I felt very called to make sure that I put a section in about the body, put a section in about etheric body, put a section in about astral body or emotional body, put a section in about the mind and recovery tools for that, put a section in about the higher self and recovery tools for that, so that therefore, if there's any part that's competing with us, we can attend to the one that's loudest, and then that helps us to be able to come back into alignment, because we have less that we're fighting against and we're working with something towards becoming more aligned and more at peace. And now let's hear from Karen.
Lifting our own consciousness, being aware of ourselves, so that we are able to accept people that might be different but who are human beings. We're all human beings. So I think for each individual to do our own personal work, to find our own peace, our own depth of connection to the wisest parts of ourselves, this is where we extend that to others, and people that have come in expressing differently will feel more accepted. Maybe the world won't feel as harsh for them.
What a beautiful, beautiful way to end today's topic. Maybe the world won't feel as harsh. And we've all got a say in that. We've all got a part to play in that. And when we can do it for ourselves, align with the highest parts of ourselves, it will continue to flow through into the world and onto other people. And it's contagious. And I want to invite you today to go about your day and try and just be in alignment with that. Not be in criticism of how other people are not in alignment of that part of themselves. And just continue to bring it back to you. And how are people challenging you today? And how can you be more aligned with your higher self? If they're catalysts for you to see where your gaps are in between the part of you that's reacting and the part of you that's judging and your higher self. So thank you for joining us today. It was really super personal for me, but also super powerful for me as well. I hope it was for you as well, and you can understand the power in your presence and the impact that has on the wider world. So next week I'm excited because we have an episode on artificial intelligence and human consciousness, and we're going to be looking at how does AI intersect with human consciousness and how we can engage with AI consciously without losing our awareness, and the risks and the opportunities for AI and spiritual development, for our human development, and also how we can use it creatively and to expand our awareness as well, and any guidance that we might have for our listeners that are interacting with AI daily. So I hope you can join us. I really look forward to it. Thank you so much for today. Big blessings to you all.
Magic is what happens